Welcome. So in this module, we are going to take a look at Spark SQL functions. So we are going to see again in a hands-on way how do we use Spark SQL functions. So there are two kinds of functions, your built-in function and user-defined function. We'll see how to make use of both of them. And then finally, we are also going to take a look at how do we connect your Spark SQL to your SQL database. Let's get started. So we have taken a look at Spark SQL and how we can directly write your data definition language SQL in Spark, or how we can make use of Spark SQL using data frames in your PySpark, right? So Spark SQL essentially has a bunch of functions. So there are two kinds of functions. So just like in any language, right? So you have built-in functions. So functions which are already coded out by the developers, and then there are some transformations for which it is very difficult for the developers to think of the set of all transformations that might be relevant to all businesses. So Spark also gives you the option to have user defined functions. So we are going to see how to make use of both of it, right? So your built-in functions are essentially Spark SQL provide standard functions under org.apache.spark.sql.functions to work with data frame and SQL queries. So all of these Spark SQL function typically returns a column type data, right? But as I mentioned, our needs may not be limited to just these built-in functions, right? So then there is a need for user-defined function, which is also known as UDF in short. So it's the most powerful feature that is built into Spark SQL and data frame because it extends the Spark built-in capability, right? So your user-defined functions can be used to extend the functions of the framework and reuse this function on several data frames. However, one of the important caveat to remember is before you start creating user-defined function, just look at the exhaustive list of built-in scalar functions that are available, because there is quite a lot of scalar functions available which you can tweak to use it in some of your transformation. All right. So now let's go into taking a demo into these Spark functions so that we can see how they can be used both as a data definition language and using the PySpark framework.
We will continue to use the same notebook, PySpark data frames and data frames method while looking at the SQL functions as well. So in PySpark, you can essentially create your aggregation, etc. Right? Now we are going to take a look at how do we use the scalar functions, the standard functions that we were using before when we looked at Spark SQL. And then PySpark has something called user-defined function, right? So that is the part we are going to walk through in this demo, right? So very quickly, just to show all your Spark configuration settings, so you can see these are just some examples, right? So now, when we were using Spark SQL, so there are scalar functions, right? So you can actually go and look at what is instr, right? What does it do? So I'm just going to show you what is the output of that. So if you look at it, so it is essentially so it's a way to get the index of the string mount in that model name, right? So if the word mount is present, this is a substring, then that's translate, right? So you can go ahead and have a bunch of scalar functions itself in your PySpark. So you can essentially use those Spark SQL scalar function on your SQL. So if you want to use it on your PySpark data frame, all right. For example, to just demonstrate, we are going to load a data frame using your dim product. So how you can use it is from your Spark SQL function. Let's import all of these functions. instr, translate, substring, etc. Right? And then we can essentially do select whatever columns, right? And use your condition. So this is you can either do a dot var, or this is an alias for your dot filter that we used earlier. Okay, so the exact same thing we are doing it using your PySpark data frame function. So then comes your user-defined function. So defining and calling a custom scalar user-defined function, UDF. So how do we do that? So first we have to create that function, right? So we are creating that function. So in this case, this function is creating, defining the margin percent type, right? So it is the product cost, it takes the product cost and the sale amount, and then sale amount minus product cost by sale amount, right? So that's the margin percent that it's actually doing. So let's run this. So we are then saying spark.udf register margin percent with this function, and the return type is a double type. So now if you want to call this function in your Spark SQL, remember, okay, so if you want to call this function, you can say select margin percent. So once you register it into Spark SQL, so you can essentially use it in your Spark SQL, in your data definition language. You can also use it in your, use your UDF with your Spark data frame as well. So you do just SQL functions import UDF, right? So in your UDF, you create your margin percentage type is your double, right? And then start using your margin percentage UDF, right? So you're creating an object of the UDF, and then so this essentially is the function that we just wrote a few cells back. So this is the function, right? So we are just registering it as a UDF and then using the UDF in our select statement directly. Okay, so you may want to try it for doing any of your, when you're doing your transformation, right? So if you're trying to look for a specific struct string, etc., so that may not be available in your built-in set of functions. So of course, as always, it's always good to look at if the built-in functions can be used, but if there isn't, then you can always do your user-defined function. So there is another way to use your UDF, create your UDF using a decorator. So what that means is you just import your UDF from your SQL function, then specify the output, the return type is double. So specify this function, right? And then use that in your select statement. Okay, so once you register your margin percent decorator, then you are able to use that in your SQL data definition language as well. All right, so I will let you play around with it. Just get comfortable with these so that in your project you can also use Spark to do your transformations, etc. All right, thank you.
So when we started this module, we talked about multiple ways to use your Spark SQL. One is you writing your Spark SQL statements on Spark using your data definition language directly. The second is using your PySpark library, which is using your data frame API. The third is how to connect Spark to your SQL database, right? So, so Spark also provides connection to any remote or cloud, your database which is hosted on the cloud. So Spark can be used to connect to relational database like your Postgres or SQL Server, etc. So the image here, you will see that just like any database connection, you need to create a database connection string, which typically consists of the user ID, the password, where is the host, right? Where is the host of the server is hosted, and what database do you want to connect to, and the port, right? So typically in a Postgres, the port is 5432. So then you form your your connection, your JDBC URL, and then you can do a spark.read.jdbc and put your URL, your connection string, that you have created. So here you are looking at Postgres protocol. So this part is your protocol. If you are creating a SQL server, so this will be slightly different for your SQL server, right? You have to use the corresponding protocol. Then you are saying which table you want to query and what are the connection properties. Your connection properties are your user ID and your password, right? So then you can essentially, once you have the connection string, so we are not going to do a demo of this because this would need, because all of our databases are on local host and we are not using Spark on the local machine, right? We are using Spark on Databricks. So it becomes very difficult unless I host a cloud database for you to all connect. But those who have access to it or you have Spark on your local machine setup, you can definitely try this. So let's summarize what we have learned in this module. So we started talking about SQL functions, the different types, the built-in functions, the user-defined functions, which makes Spark very useful to customize to our needs, for our data processing needs. So we also looked at a demo of use of both your built-in functions and your UDF through your lab, and then we saw how you can connect a Spark to the database. So in this module we have comprehensively seen Spark SQL, the different ways to invoke it, how can we use it for our data processing needs. So I will see you in the next module. Thank you.